Hey guys, welcome to Movement Paradigm Podcast, the podcast that discusses mindset, manual therapy, and movement. Today's guest, I have Bobby Leiser. He sat down with me for about an hour. I met Bobby back in 2010. We were both Fitchburg State Falcons. He played for the hockey team there, and I played for the baseball team. And we ran with similar friends, the hockey team and the baseball team. Got along very well. Most of the hockey team played juniors up in Canada, so I connected with those guys right away. But yeah, Bobby, he was a good friend back then, and he is running his own goalie consultant company for hockey goalies in New York, just outside of New York City. And then he also is a coach for the West Point Academy NCAA Div 1 hockey program. So he is a heavy hitter in the world of hockey goaltending. So we talked a little bit about his career, a little bit about playing back at Fitchburg. And then I wanted to get to know a little bit more on what it takes to train a high-level hockey goalie, a little bit about the game, and then we threw in some fun stuff there. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Give it up for Bobby Leiser. Bobby Leiser, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to catch up again. It's been unfortunately way too long. So
It's been a hot 10 years since we saw each
yeah.
other. So when I was playing at Fitchburg, every once in a while, I would get homesick. And every time I hung out with the hockey crew, it was just like being home in Canada. And you know what? COVID's been a little bit long. Haven't been home for a while, so this feels just like being at home, talking with a hockey guy.
Well, I mean, 10 years, but like I said, we can start talking, and I'm sure it's going to feel like it was 10 hours.
Yeah.
So that's good. It's great catching up, though.
So take me through your roles right now. I know you're doing lots of coaching, so break it down for me. What are you doing?
Yeah. So I started a goalie training company up about 8 years ago. So it was about a year out of college when I started. So it was 2013. Um, Started pretty small. Was doing like one clinic a week, and just kind of kept building on there as it got bigger. Got more engaged. I didn't know if it was going to be a full-time thing at first, and it ended up that and then some. I have a couple guys, employees working as staff coaches, and kind of just got into the college side of things, coaching as well, doing goalie coaching. So I'm going to be entering my second year with Army West Point Division 1 program. So it's been a pretty fun ride so far.
Nice. So break down what a goalie coach does on a daily.
So yeah, so goalie coach, I mean, I guess it would be the equivalent to like a pitching coach in baseball or a quarterback coach in football. So, I mean, we come in and we just work directly with the goalies in particular. Usually like the way we do it up at West Point is we'll come in before practice, like their allotted practice time, and we'll work with the goalies for about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on their workload for that week and how much time we actually can work. The guys can get up there, and then so we'll do hands-on training. I'll come in with a bunch of drills and talk to the boys and see if there's things they want to work on or things we went over in video from this past weekend, or things that they wanted to kind of key in on going into the following weekend. If we know teams have certain tendencies that they like to do and to do in the game. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell right there. I mean, that's from the college standpoint of things, and from just what I do privately with clients. Like we do private lessons, we do small group lessons, clinics, camps, video analysis. So I mean, there's really a lot of different avenues kind of taking this thing.
Cool. So in baseball, you've got 5 tool players. So that's a position player that can hit for average, power, they can field their position. They've got, I forget the other 2, but you've got the 5 tools that make up a good baseball player. Is there an equivalent for a goalie? Like, can they make saves in the moment? Is there an equivalent that you can connect there?
I kind of know what you're saying with that, and I think it's a little bit different from the goalie standpoint. I think that you look at the NHL. Now there's gonna be 32 teams in there, and I mean, pretty much on any given night, if all 32 teams are playing, you have 32 goalies that play a different style. So there's not like where okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's our good goalie. That's the guy we're looking for, a 5-star kind of guy. But I think it's a lot of things. I think it's obviously the physical talent level. We talk about a lot of times with the reading plays, kind of how they handle themselves in the moment, the pressure, being able to play at a strong level, a high level, even when maybe they're not playing their best. So I think there's a lot of different things that I look at when I'm looking at a goalie, and a lot of different traits that they have to have. Again, not all those traits are going to be the same across the board with, from goalie one to goalie two.
I've heard through the grapevine that goalies are the weirdest guys on the team. Is there any truth to that?
I mean, listen, and probably the best compliment I got from and multiple people at this is that I was the most normal goalie that a lot of people met. So I took that in stride. But I will be honest, there are definitely some weird goalies, as there are weird skaters, weird forwards, weird defensemen. But I think that there's a mindset that a goalie has other than a forward and a defenseman that maybe puts them in that category a little bit more. But like I said, for me, I just I wanted to be a good locker room guy, so that's what I shot for.
A good locker room. Yeah, I get that's the same with they say pitchers are always weird. I have a
Yep.
theory that it's all about the solitude because you have a team, but there's lots of time you spend alone.
Yeah, I think that and one thing I always tell the goalies is that we kind of play an individual position on a team sport. So you look at a forward in base, or sorry, forward in hockey or a defenseman, you have 4 lines of forwards usually and 3 lines of defensemen. You have one net though. So that means there's only one goalie on the ice. And so when you're in that net, there's no one else but in there but you. So like I guess it's similar to a pitcher in baseball. And I always like take, a little bit, I always give those guys a little bit more credit for guys that play that individual position on a team sport where, hey, sometimes it's you're out there and things are rolling well and it's an easy game. And sometimes the next night, you're out there and you got to find a way to battle through to, a 5-5 game or a 4-4 game where you got to make that next save. Because that other guy, like I said, if it's the next shot, it could be him, it could be you that's giving up that goal. And obviously you don't want it to be you. So
Yeah, it's pretty unique as a player on the team because, like, if it's the first minute of a period and you let up a bad goal, you have 19 minutes to just be by yourself in your thoughts. So I'm assuming that goes into your mindset coaching to just control the moment and have a short memory.
yeah, I think that, whether it be a save or whether it be a goal, you have to keep yourself in the present as much as possible. And the guys that do that the most consistently, whether they gave up a goal on the first shot or they gave up their first 2 shots, I mean, as quick as you can give up 2 goals, your team can score 3. So that's a huge trait I look for in goaltenders is how they bounce back, how they have that reset mechanism after they give up a goal. Because I've had many coaches tell me that so and so is a good goalie and this guy's a good goalie, but you know what? You score a couple on him early, and he folds. I say to them, I go to counter. I'm like, well, is he a good goalie when he's good, or is he a good goalie all the time? Because it's easy to be good when you're good, but I think your character truly shows. When you're fighting it a little bit, and you got to dig deep and gut out a performance. And I think that's what makes the top goalies, because you're not going to have your best stuff every night. And if you did, there'd be no such thing as a good game, because every game would be good for you.
How hard is the conditioning during a busy period? I know what it's like I played out in hockey, very limited men's league, but I know what it's like to be tired at the end of a shift. What is that conditioning like if you get hit up for 5 minutes straight? How tired are you?
So it's funny you mentioned that. Like a lot of times, you're talking about a 60-minute game, and they did an average on how much time actually a goalie is moving and working during that 60 minutes. And in a regular game, it only ends up being about 3, 4, 5 minutes of that time. So what's that other time we're doing? And that's really the focus on the mental side. How to kind of keep yourself mentally sharp. I mean, you can get in a minute at a time in your zone where you're moving around, and then you might have 7, 8 minutes where that puck's not in your end. So it's very like on and off. And I think that, from a mental standpoint, it's so important that to be mentally strong and to keep yourself engaged in the game, because I mean, you talk about the course of a game is about 3 hours for a hockey game, an NHL, standard game with the ice cuts and the whistles and all that stuff. So it definitely takes a lot out of you. And from a physical standpoint, I mean, we focus on a lot of skating. Like our movements aren't as players where, it's 200 feet up and down the ice back and forth for 45 seconds on a shift, but our movements have to be all within our blue paint pretty much. So short, quick, powerful movements, balanced. Every movement we make basically is important, So if you mess up a stride as a skater, okay, you can get back into play. You mess up a push as a goalie, that probably ends up in the back of your net if the guy shoots the puck. So it's just so important that goalies are comfortable on their edges, they're balanced, they can transfer their weight. So ultimately, I tell guys all the time about 90% of your save that you're going to make happens before the puck's even shot. It's the position you're putting yourself into beforehand. And the goalies that can do that most consistently, most confidently, are usually the goalies where they're making that save look pretty easy.
At the higher end sport, which you're doing D1, and I know you have some pro guys too.
Yep.
Does the conditioning change from like a position player to a goalie? Are you hitting different goals with your daily conditioning?
Um, Not necessarily. Honestly, what we preach as coaches and what coaches want to see their goalies do is to keep things simple back there. So, and everyone thinks that, okay, to play at the NHL level, like they must be doing crazy kind of movement in the net and crazy kind of training. And there's some intense forms of training, don't get me wrong, but the actual movements themselves are all pretty elementary. It's more so that those movements are so consistent and so second nature to these guys that at the end of the day, it's just there's no thought process. It's just read, react, go, 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 go. So, you can always improve your speed and your strength, but the biggest thing is that all of our simple movements are just almost perfect to a T.
Hmm. Take me through like a daily routine of a goalie when they're training in season.
So, I mean, everyone's routine's a little different. I'll kind of touch on mine a little bit, and I know there's guys that are way more routine oriented than me, and probably guys that are way less. But I mean, my day started. Obviously, I make sure I wake up at around the same time if we're talking about an evening game. Have a good breakfast. Usually was an oatmeal and eggs or something like that. A little heavier on the breakfast for me. I just felt that I would go a little lighter as the day went through, but I would go down a couple hours before the game, get a bike in for about 15 minutes, a dynamic stretch and a cool down stretch. So I like to always loosen up a couple hours before, just to kind of get my body, loose and going. And then I'd come home, take a pregame nap, which a lot of guys do for, whatever, 45 minutes, an hour. Wake up, kind of get myself ready, head down to the rink a couple hours before the game, and then do another routine there, which was a lot of stretching and visualization and stuff like that. But there you goalies can really change that up. I mean, some goalies like the hand-eye coordination, throwing the balls off the wall. Other goalies said it's a little bit more visualization. Other goalies a little bit more with the stretching. But I think regardless of you or someone else, that everyone's routine is going to be a little different. I always preach to the guys that whatever your routine or whatever gets you going, uh, if it's working for you, stick with it. And if you have to make some changes, don't be afraid to make changes either. Um, but there's a fine line between routine and superstition. And superstitions, though, I think where guys have to watch out for a little bit, because you can just drive yourself crazy and it becomes mentally exhausting, and by the time the puck drops, you're so, oh, I didn't do this at, 5 o'clock. I didn't do this at 5:30. I didn't touch my toes 7 times before I threw my left skate on, and things like that for a goalie. I mean, you want to be going into a game just with a kind of clear mind, clear thought process, so that we were talking about before, you can just kind of keep yourself in the present and worry about, the task at hand.
Hmm. So, what was your playing career like? Do you have any highlights?
Uh, well, I actually kind of started late. in the realm, I use the quotes late because I don't think there's ever too late of a time to start. It's kind of using that time and what you're going to use that time to take advantage of whatever goal you might have. So like every other kid, I dreamed about playing in the NHL, but when you top out about 5'9", you learn that goal is probably not going to come true. But so I didn't start playing until I was ice hockey, at least until um, 12 years old. So I started at 12, goalie, picked it up pretty quick, ended up being a 5-year starter on the varsity team that following year. Took it to juniors in Canada, played 2 years of junior A in Canada and 1 year back in the States, and then which ultimately led to Fitchburg. And I think one of the big highlights there was winning the MassCAC championship in 2011. I mean, we had an unbelievable group of guys, and the year before, we won our league and lost in overtime to Salem State in our own barn, which was pretty tough, and I know it left a sour taste in a lot of guys' mouth. But the following year to play them again in the finals in their barn and beat them in overtime about a minute in, just how they beat us the year before it was pretty surreal way to win. And I know a lot of the guys, we felt we had unfinished business that year before, and for the guys that came back, which was pretty much the majority of the team, it was great to see the seniors leave with that championship.
Yeah, I actually was there for that one, so that was a lot of fun. Uh,
I don't think I noticed you actually.
for those listeners at Fitchburg, I felt like it was my Canadian duty to show up to most of the home games dressed in full hockey gear and sit next to the penalty box and just mimic the opposing team's actions whenever they entered the penalty box. That was probably the highlight of my college career there. That game, I want to hear that through your eyes. So what did you see in that? You guys were tied and you going into overtime. What did you see? Give me that picture from your eyes.
Yeah, well, we were up late in the game, and it was a pretty wild game. I think it ended up being 5-5 going into overtime, and I remember Salem scored a few goals to tie the game up late, and so we're going in. Obviously, in that situation, there's momentum, but I think that when you're playing for a championship, I mean, every shift guys are playing hard, regardless if you're up by two or down by two. So kind of going into that overtime, I think that I remember they had a really good chance right away, 2-on-1 that they missed the net on. We came back the other way, and I remember Trevor Lawler got the goal, scored a crazy goal in front. Now, what happened afterwards, I didn't actually see with my own eyes on the ice, but fortunately for us, there was a couple of people doing video, and we had a big pile on celebration in the corner, and I just remember a couple guys, couple fans were on the ice, but I didn't see anything that transpired up to that point. So by the time we went back to the video review, I happened to see the guy on the other end of this podcast going on the ice, running out, slipping.
We
Maybe he
all we
fell.
all we all slipped at the
Yeah,
exact same
I think he
time.
fell a couple times, and then he took the game-winning puck, which somehow was sitting right in the middle of the ice. Had a stick. Was it one of our stick, or did you bring your own stick?
I brought my own stick. Yeah.
Oh, so he had his own. Took the puck that we scored the game-winning goal, took a slap shot in the empty net, and proceeded to celebrate by doing ice angels on the ice on his back, all while we were celebrating in the corner. So I think I was just, unfortunately, I would have loved to see it live, but I think I was just a little tied up with, hugging guys and celebrating with the boys. But I'm so glad we got that on camera, because that's one of the moments we still talk about with the guys to this day, which
Yeah.
is almost 10 years later. So
If let's find a YouTube link to that. I'm gonna throw this on this episode if we
yes,
can.
I
Because
will definitely send that over to you.
yeah.
I think if we just look it up, it's on Fitchburg State MassCAC 2011 championship or something like that. But I'll definitely send that over to you, so the listeners won't know we're not lying or not fabricating the story by any means.
Yeah, it was perfect. I'm yet to see that celebration put into hockey these days, but I really think we should start adding it in. Go for the Ice
Yeah,
Angels. Yeah.
I think there should be more of it, and everyone's about the celebrations now, and the kids, they're all about scoring the silky goal and celebrating. So I mean, maybe we can get yours a little viral.
So how important is chirping to your game and as you coach it? Is chirping a big part of your
You
stick?
know what? I never was a big. I like to give it to the guys in practice, like my teammates, and we give it back and forth, and we have a little fun with it. In regards to chirping the other guys and the other team, I heard a lot as a goalie, and I always felt that I heard more when I was playing well, and I felt that it was almost to try and get me off my game, which obviously it usually is for. But I never really got too much into it because I felt my job was to to focus on the game and making saves, and if I felt that my mindset was elsewhere, that I wouldn't be focused 100% on doing my job, which is controlling the puck and controlling the game. So definitely heard a lot of funny stuff.
What are some of the best ones you've heard?
I've seen coupons save more than you. Uh, I've gotten middle. They called me middle bar once.
Yeah.
So the middle bar of the net, they call me that because that's where apparently that's where all the pucks hit in the middle of the net, not the corners.
Yeah.
Um, geez, I'm trying to think of some other good ones. I mean, there's plenty of others for players. I know they call players grocery sticks.
Grocery stick, yeah.
So so a grocery stick is just like what you think at the supermarket. It's the guy who sits on the bench. That's kind of a utility guy. Maybe plays forward, maybe plays D, but he breaks up where the forward and D sit. So he doesn't really have a set position. So that's not really a good one. A pigeon. A pigeon is a guy who kind of feeds off someone else's success. Pigeons can't really fend for themselves. They try and take our food. So a pigeon's a pretty good one.
I've heard a
And yeah,
donut line. Donut line.
what's the donut line?
A donut line is two wings that are good and then a center that's just shit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Yeah. So I mean, there's probably more stuff that I never heard of, and there's more stuff that I'm probably going to be called in my lifetime, maybe. But at least hopefully I know most of the stuff at this point.
So there is some unwritten rules in baseball. I played baseball in college at Fitchburg for those listening, and I was a big enforcer on the mound. If I felt like a guy was taking too long on a home run, if I felt like he was tipping my pitches, I was really quick to react. Usually, the retaliation baseball is you get warned, like you throw at that player the next time he's up. What are some unwritten rules in hockey? Because I know after the play, if there's contact with the goalie, that's a no-no. That guy gets usually some D guy comes up and gives him a face wash or something. Is there some
Yeah,
unwritten rules there?
usually like snowing the goalie. So like if a guy comes in hard and stops right in front of the goalie and kind of gives him a snow shower, that's usually not a good one. Guys hitting the puck after the whistle, pushing the goalie. Really, the goalies aren't supposed to have any contact. So if, like, let's say goalie goes behind the net in the course of a game and handles the puck and passes it up, I've seen guys just go full speed into the goalies before. And again, when everything's slowed down to instant replay mode, things tend to look worse sometimes than they are. I know that at full speed, it's hard to avoid a guy if you don't see him or you lose an edge last minute. But I've definitely gotten in a few little tips in front myself and protecting myself. But there's also a couple things that I do in front of the net. I would hack at ankles. I would hack it back at legs. If again, I'm just a smaller goalie. So when they're packing the net in front with bodies to try and take away my sight, I would pretty much, there was no rules at that point for me to try and find that puck. So guys didn't like it. I was threatened before. I was threatened that by one guy up in Canada my first year of juniors. He was about 6'6", 230 pounds, and I was hitting him in front of the power play the whole time. And he turned around when we got the puck out finally, and he says, "If you ever touch me again, I'm going to kill you." So, needless to say, he was not touched for the rest of the game, at least by me. So,
Right to the
there was
point.
there.
Yeah.
Well, not yeah, and it was he was nice about it. He gave me 4 warnings, so I have to appreciate that. But I probably would have been pulling the teeth out of the back of my throat if he took one shot at me. So, got to know when to pick and choose your battles, I think.
Yeah. Is there the retaliation when something goes wrong? You prefer the hack?
Yeah, or a good blocker. A good blocker to the face wasn't a bad thing. If the guy was down on the ice, I'd actually use my blocker hand and do a little face wash.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a bad thing either. But again, you got to pick and choose your spots because the refs sometimes give you a little leeway. But if it's pretty blatant, you also don't want to be causing your team to take a penalty, and put your team at jeopardy because of your emotional side kind of going a little too far. So I always thought I kept that in check pretty good. I did play with a lot of emotion on the ice. I played hard, and I wanted to win, and I wanted to stop every puck that I was out there. And I think that's another reason why, even with like my size, I was able to make it that far. And actually had a pro tryout in Austria after Fitchburg as well, during the NHL lockout season in 2012. But for me to kind of just fight through those elements, because you look at goalies, I mean, it's all about size now. I mean, I'll be honest with you. You got a guy that's 6'4", you got a guy that's 5'10", and if they're doing the same job and they're the same skill, they're going with the 6'4" guy.
Hmm.
And it's just the way it is. And so I always had to kind of outwork guys, not just be as good as guys to earn my spots. So again, I wanted to always make sure my time in the net, I took advantage of, because hey, if I lose my job one day, it might be the last time I'm in net for a while.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I found that the best coaches across the board, with obviously exceptions, are people that had to really struggle. They things didn't come naturally to them, so they had to figure out the tricks, and they know the game on a level that the guys that are just pure talents, they don't always have and they can't explain.
yeah, I think that and I say this to guys all the time. Not always the best players are the best coaches, and not always the best coaches were best players. So I think at the end of the day, there's certain guys that get it, and certain guys that work through it can adapt to different situations a lot easier, and it can adapt to, like, from a coaching standpoint, to a lot of different players and personalities and stuff. And I think that's something I do well. Because there's some guys that I work with that are just naturally talented, naturally gifted, and a lot of stuff comes. I don't want to say easy, but easier than other guys. And there's other guys that are undersized, are under strength, whatever it may be, that just continue to work and find ways to push to get to those next levels and keep earning spots as they're moving up. So I think being kind of in that role probably helped me adapt to the coaching side of things a little bit quicker. But it's great. And again, I didn't know something I was going to be doing to this extent when I was even in college. Kind of fell into it randomly. So when I got into it, though, I knew it was my calling, and I knew that it was something I wanted to keep doing.
Mhm. Do you have any mistakes that you made in your playing career that you see in your younger guys and you try to just nip it in the bud right away?
Yeah. So I never really went to a coach. I mean, the goalie coaching novelty is definitely something that has exploded in the last 10 to 15 years. There were goalie coaches that were around, but I never was coached. My form of coaching was, I'd go to Canada in the summer and go to a week long goalie camp. And that was my goalie coaching. So the problem with that is that they didn't know who the hell I was, until maybe Wednesday. They were like, oh, okay, we start to see some tendencies, and let's focus on this the last few days. But by Friday, okay, we'll see you next year. So having a coach who's around you now for 52 weeks out of the year, you can really develop a kid, or develop an adult, or whatever it may be, over the course of that time. So, okay, if they're struggling with something, well, okay, this is what we're going to continue to focus on until we are ready to move on to the next thing. So that aspect has changed a lot. So going back to my playing days with it, um, I was pretty much self-taught. So I relied a lot on my athleticism and a little bit on my technical game. The problem with that is that it got me to a certain point where I was very successful with it, and it really started to hit home my first year in Canada, my first year junior, where a lot of guys were really good. So um, at that point, I had to really start to develop my technical side of the game. And that's something I tell guys a lot. And I tell that with guys that are maybe doing that as well, that, okay, it's good to have that athleticism, but there needs to be a good balance between your technical side and your athleticism. Can't just be all technical either, right? Because you need that element for error in the game, and element for mistakes in the game, where you're going to have to play that athletic style in a certain situation. But you can't just rely solely on that, because if you make 50 save shutout one night, and then you're giving up 10 goals on 50 shots the next night, there's no consistency in that. And we want to make sure that as goaltenders, we can keep our level of play as smooth as possible. There's going to be little bumps in the road here and there, but we don't want it to be a roller coaster. And that's what I noticed my game was. I don't want to say I was giving up 10 goals and then a shutout, but there was definitely highs and lows, and I needed to develop more consistency to sustain that level and continue to move forward. So it's something that I really like to address to the guys and make sure that they understand.
Mhm. How were injuries during your career? I know I saw you a couple times in the old trainer's room. Shout out to Todd Soulier or however you
Yeah,
say his
Todd and Beck.
Todd and Becca.
Beck
Yeah.
was kind of our for the hockey team, and she was unbelievable. I mean, she got myself and I know a few other guys through those injuries at college. But you know, the biggest thing for me, and I was really fortunate with injuries. I mean, I broke my hand on a slap shot once, making a save, but other than that, that was the only really you know long extended time I was out for. Um, just maybe taking a maintenance day here and there. But what really started to go for me later in my career were my hips,
Mhm.
and my hips and my hip flexors in particular. And it's one of the most common injuries for goalies. It's just because of the movements we do in the net and opening up our hips, closing our hips, going up, going down, going lateral, side to side. And a lot of guys tend to have tears in their labrums. Now, obviously, for me, I was able to play through it, but it was something I needed to get worked on pretty much every day by the end of my career. So like I was saying before, when I went to Europe after to try and play in Austria, um, I was probably on my last like year of going to be able to play before surgery. I had kind of looked at the possibility of surgery in college, but I was, with a 6 month really recovery time, I was like, listen, if I can gut it out and play through it, then okay. If it ends up failing on me, then we'll have to address it when it does. But going into my senior year, I wanted to make sure that I had every advantage to be on the ice, as I could. So and to go out with a bang. But I knew that if I was going to keep playing after college, eventually the surgery would have caught up. I ended up not getting the surgery because my career kind of ended after Austria, and I still feel it every now and then in my hips when I'm showing technique on the ice and showing some movement on the ice, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I still can't play. but but no, I was really fortunate with injuries, other than just kind of making sure I was maintaining my body, especially later in my career.
What is the importance of a bag skate?
The importance of a bag skate. All right. Well, I've definitely been a part of a few of those.
First off, what is a bag skate?
So a is pretty much just a sprint, and you're just skating the entire practice. Can be different reasons why. We got bag skated my first year of juniors. I wasn't on a good team. We got bag skated probably 8 times no puck practice over the course of the season. So I always tell guys the worst part of a bag skate is the first probably 15 minutes because you're actually feeling yourself tired and exhausted. And then after 15 minutes, you're just numb. So it's like, all right, you're moving. You're probably not moving fast. You feel like you're pushing as hard as you can, but you don't feel anything at that point. So I was in such good cardio shape then that I can get through it. Usually there's a pail or a garbage pail that's made readily available for guys that want to get rid of their breakfast or lunch. Fortunately, it never happened to me, but yeah, there's different reasons for them. I mean, obviously, play can be one of them. Uh, Maybe some off ice activities. If they weren't good off ice activities, that can be one of them too. Or sometimes you just get that surprise bag skate because the coach feels like it. Those are usually the worst because at least the other ones, okay, you kind of prepare for them. But when they're unexpected, those are usually the toughest ones that I had to endure.
Yeah, punishments are a little easier when you know you earned them.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So in pitching, you kind of have only a couple ways to show off. We call it like swag or whatever. Pitchers focus a lot on their pants. So, like how the pants fit, what kind of glove do they have? We can't wear any stuff on our arms. Chains are cool depending on where you are, or like the brim of the hat, how you wear that. What kind of swag do goalies focus on?
So, I mean, all these guys, I mean, their equipment now, I mean, even more so than when I played, I was able to customize my colors and how I wanted the equipment, especially as I got to college, which was pretty cool. So I had I know my freshman year, I came in kind of inspired by Marc-Andre Fleury, who had all gold pads at the time, or all yellow pads when he played with Pittsburgh Penguins. So I went heavy gold on mine with a little bit of green. And they're definitely a fashion statement. And coming in freshman year, maybe it was a little too colorful, drawing a little too much attention to myself. So by the time I got my next set of gear, I went a little more conventional, more white with a little green and gold for Pittsburgh. But um, and the helmets are a big thing too. I never actually got my helmet painted. It was never really anything that I was like, oh, I need to get my helmet painted. But I mean, there's some awesome paint jobs and some of these guys that put together, especially at the professional level, but even with some of the youth programs and the colleges and all that stuff, um, with what these guys and the design ideas and the design concepts that they come up with, it makes it really unique to every goalie, and every helmet really tells a story. I think that was the first thing that kind of really started to get customized for goalies in the way of like telling your story with the swag and all that. But there's some really awesome helmets out there. I never got mine painted, primarily because if I got it for a certain team, I was always worried about if I got traded or if I wouldn't be there, and I didn't want to be the guy wearing the helmet from the other team 3 months later if I got traded or anything like that. So I always kept it all white, kept it pretty simple, and I knew that I could fit in wherever I needed to go.
You ready for some rapid fire questions?
Let's go.
All
I'm
right.
ready.
So I've heard that guys are really nice in the locker room, like good players, really nice in the locker room, and then they flip a switch and they are the meanest guys on the ice. So they go really good locker room guy and then meanest guy on the ice. Any truth to that?
I think you tend to see that with the fighters and the enforcers more so. I just think that they are awesome in the locker room. They're usually the funniest guys, the guys that all the guys want to hang out with. But again, when I think it's almost a mechanism to get their mind off the fighting, so that when they go out there, they know that they're not going to get many shifts, but the shifts they're going to get, they might have to answer the bell. And you talk to a lot of fighters, and they all say the same thing, is that they're always nervous and anxious before. So I think it's almost a thing to get their mind off it.
What is your favorite goal, Selly?
Favorite goal, Selly. I'm a big sword
Sword.
guy. So like
Mm.
I twist the sword and then I push it right down back into the holster. Usually when I score on my training sessions.
Have you ever been in a fight?
One.
Take me through it.
Should I elaborate? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was a line brawl. So if you don't know what a line brawl is, it's usually when all the guys are going in. And again, I've been in a few scraps and scuffles and stuff like that, but I'm talking actually gloves off fight one. Um, so one guy was fighting one guy, two turned to two, three turned to three, and eventually their goalie jumped in. So I can't sit in my net, even though the fight was going on the other end, if our guys are getting outmanned. So I had to skate all the way down, and I had to fight a goalie who was 6'4" and about 220 pounds. And I was probably about 5'8", 150 at the time, my first year junior. So needless to say, the gloves went off, the helmets went off, and I held on for dear life.
Best way to kill time on a long bus ride.
I was a big music guy. I had a playlist for the bus. I'd have a playlist for the rink, and I wasn't a guy sleeping on the bus, but some guys could fall asleep. I usually try to get my nap in before the bus ride, and luckily for us at Fitchburg, our bus rides were all pretty short to our spots. So I was just music and kind of thinking about the game.
Favorite NHL goalie currently?
Favorite goalie currently is Carey Price.
Carey Price. Nice. Best way to celebrate a win?
Best way to celebrate a win, a great locker room song after. So I was a big, always loved a good locker room song after the game, and pumping it on with the boys, and just laughing and sharing some good times with it. So like I said, I always treasured my games on the ice. I could probably remember most of them over the hundreds and thousands I've played probably. I have always a pretty good memory for those things like that. So I always just try to take everything in stride.
You mentioned being a good locker room guy is important. What would make someone a bad locker room guy?
Bad locker room guy, maybe just I don't know if there's necessarily a bad locker room guy. Like I would like to just keep things light, I think. And guys would probably agree, like I was definitely a lot more lighter during games when I wasn't playing. I was kind of a little bit more focused into myself on games I was playing. Now it wasn't like guys couldn't approach me or anything like that, but I don't know. Bad locker room guy. I don't know if I'm just trying to think. Maybe a guy who's I don't know, keeping to himself a little bit, or I don't know. Everyone's a little different. I don't know if I really met any bad locker room guys. Maybe a guy stealing your tape or something like that. So,
That's awesome. Well, thanks for coming on there, Bobby. It was great to chat with you,
oh
man.
yeah, man, it was awesome. I'd love to do it again, and I think you got an awesome thing going here, and I got to catch a couple of your episodes so far.
Cool, man.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's the time of the podcast right now, and it's been awesome to be a part of yours.
Cool, man. For people watching, how do they get a hold of you if they want to find out more about your goalie stuff?
So you can check us out. I do a lot of Instagram. I never was really big on social media until COVID, so it gave me a little time to start building that end of things. But you can find us at Sentinel Goalie Consultants on Instagram. I put up a lot of videos of our guys and our current training stuff. A lot of videos of the college guys we work with, and I like to put up a lot of pro clips. I think a lot of the guys that I work with like to relate to things we do on the ice to what the top guys in the world are doing.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I'll catch you later.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks, Ty.
See you, Bobby.